It's the George Plaster Show. 30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee. Featuring Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer Watson Brown. And it's a shame it's taken this long to get an introduction for this Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer, Kelly Holcomb, along with young gun Billy Derrick. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in. It is a beautiful Wednesday in Nashville, Tennessee. Supposedly, I sound better. I feel fine. Glad to be rid of the flu. And now it just simply comes down to allergies. Hello.
Hello, allergies.
Hello, allergies, and welcome. Let's go to Murfreesboro and say hello to our man, Kelly Holcomb. That is Cleveland what?
International
Cleveland Records. International Records.
Gotcha.
Kelly, you look excited for the show today.
I do. I'm just thinking about what George just said. He feels better. He sounds better. Don't know if he looks better.
Oh, no. Look, I have never tried to throw that card out there. People who are blind can see well enough. Oh, Lord. There's a reason he's not on TV. I've never tried to throw that card out there. Never.
Understandable. Me neither.
But apparently, last night when you should have been watching hoops, what happened?
I don't know, man. I actually started out watching the Virginia-Colorado State game, and they were so abysmal at the beginning. I cut it off, and I went to bed. Like, it was really bad. It was really bad at the beginning of the game. They could not score. Neither one of them. They sucked shooting. It was bad.
Now, which game were you talking about?
The Virginia-Colorado State.
Oh, my God. Oh, yes. Listen, that was well, we're going to talk about it when Taylor Barnette comes on at 3, because Taylor Barnette played for Tony Bennett at Virginia before he transferred to Belmont. Here's the deal. Tony Bennett is a Hall of Fame coach. I don't care how you slice it. His father, the legendary Dick Bennett. I mean, it's basketball royalty. He's won a national title at Virginia. It's not like they're going to fire him. I don't care what Stephen A. puts out there. That's not happening. But they are unwatchable.
That was bad last night, man. Of course, I hadn't seen Virginia, but he's had some really good basketball teams. That year that they got beat by the 16th seed. Were they number one overall that year, George?
Yeah,
were they the number one seed?
Was it Maryland, Baltimore County,
UMBC
that beat them?
Yeah.
Here's what I wonder. What was the year, Billy? What was the year they won it all?
It was the very next year, whatever it was.
Yeah, they lost in that first round, and then the next year they won it all. That was
right,
2019.
Okay, so it's now been 5 years. The talent level there has had a huge drop-off. I mean, this team looked a little Jerry Stackhouse-ish. Did I say that right? I mean, they were awful. So I'm wondering if this group of kids, young adults, 5 years later, want nothing to do with that style of play.
It's possible, man. It really is. It's possible. I mean, play good defense and Hoosier their way around with the ball, throw it around a bunch. We're going to throw it. We're going to pass 10 passes before we shoot, fellas. So that's what we're going to do. So I don't know, George. You may be right. I mean, there may be something to that. It could be because he's a really good coach.
Oh, and a
man,
even better human being.
Yeah, watching last night, man. I literally couldn't watch it, man. I literally had to cut it off, and I actually went to sleep because it was so bad.
So it does help those who are siding with Pitino some, and I'm just going to say it the way it is. Rick Pitino today should be the absolute, with Krzyzewski having retired. Rick Pitino should be the voice of college basketball, but he's not anywhere close. And I'll tell you why he's not. Because he behaved like an absolute idiot at Louisville. The level of cheating that went on there, the let's close up the restaurant so we can, I guess I got that out there. I mean, it has lost him a respect in the college athletic world. I'm not saying he's radioactive. He's a Hall of Fame coach. There's no question about that. But today, Izzo came out and said a lot of what Pitino said a couple of days ago is right. But I don't think anymore that people are paying any attention to Rick Pitino. He's just the guy looking like Colonel Sanders in the white suit.
Yeah, and that's really that's something too, George, about where he was in college basketball elite, and now I guarantee you, people don't even know where he's at.
He's not.
They don't even know he's there.
He's not walking through that door.
That's right. Yeah. Kind of sad.
Billy, do you have an update of any?
I do.
Level?
Yeah. I mean,
it looks like this picture now. I'm over here, and I'm trying to figure out. Are you trying to X me out?
Maybe.
Wow.
No, I wouldn't do that.
I think Kelly respected your honesty.
The first game between Wagner and Howard was a good game, though. I didn't watch most of it. I tuned in with about 14 seconds left and saw Howard get up 3 threes in a row and miss all 3 of them. So they had a chance to tie it. So
they did. By the way, one of them was a foul. The second one.
Okay, yeah, the second one
was a foul.
Yeah. But, yeah, they weren't great looks. They were all pretty contested. But Wagner advances, and they will play – who is that 1 seed? I just had my bracket. Kelly, you got your bracket?
Is it Purdue?
It is. I think
Purdue.
It is.
It may
correct. It is Purdue, and then Colorado State blows out Virginia.
Our show is projecting a winner in the Purdue-Wagner game.
Yeah. Going out on a limb. Tonight,
it's Purdue.
Grambling and Montana State at 5:40. Grambling, a team that came out of the SWAC, I want to say. They actually beat Vanderbilt last year. So good Grambling team. Montana State made a run in their conference tournament. And then tonight, Colorado and Boise State. Colorado favored by 3.5.
We have a pick on that one.
Shocking.
Shocker.
Hold on a second.
Shocking.
What was the number you gave?
Colorado minus 3.5. According to Bet ESPN.
Who made them God's gift to?
George, these numbers vary. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
The one that I put out there.
It's minute by minute.
Yeah, absolutely. As the money pours in on Grambling.
Yes.
Correct.
You did bring up Tom Izzo, though. He said he agrees with Rick Pitino, who argued that the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee needs more input from former players and coaches rather than relying so heavily on athletic directors dissecting analytics. And he said there definitely should be some coaches and players on that thing to bring some levity, as crazy as it's gotten. I never know what the net means, what KenPom means, what ESPN means, or the Daily News. There's so many things out there right now that influence the committee.
Okay, so let's say he's right, and by the way, he is. Basketball coaches know their craft.
Yeah.
There have been athletic directors over the years who didn't know if a basketball was pumped or stuffed. But they get on these committees and they start, gyrating all this crap. Well, our computer says, at some point there's got to be an eye test. Okay. Last night, Billy, when I told you, now I've been wrong on the eye test a lot, but when I told you, okay, I'm taking Colorado State emphatically over Virginia, That's based on having seen both teams about 10 different times.
Right.
And I don't think these ADs can say that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, this is the Tony Bennett bump. That's what that was. That's why Virginia got in, I think. And they did have a streak of like 8 wins in a row.
Right. But
here's
where I would go with that. Okay. Are there retired coaches out there who don't really have a dog in the hunt, who have a better feel for this stuff than ADs? Not yes,
I would think
but
so.
oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So let me throw a couple out there. You want me to name names? Kermit
Sure.
Davis.
Oh.
Correct.
Okay.
That's one of them.
You want to name names? Bruce Weber. Want to keep naming names?
Jay Wright.
Jay Wright. Excellent name. Want to name names? Kevin Stallings.
Oh.
There's a lot.
There's a lot out there.
I think that is, I hope Izzo will continue to apply that pressure, that this is a change that needs to be made, because we are getting, it feels like we're getting too metric. Listen, and we're going to talk about this with Greg Sage here in a few minutes. You have to be kind of a junkie to watch a lot of hoops on CBS Sports Network, but they are the network that carries Mountain West.
Mm-hmm.
And I think while the committee let all the Mountain West teams in that they should have, I thought they screwed virtually all of them over as to the level of seed.
Yeah.
That's a really good basketball conference.
They all got seeds 10 or higher, it looked like.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, talked about that with Kerry Keating. And, I mean, he coached out west, not in the Mountain West, but at Santa
He'd be
Clara.
a good one on that committee.
Yeah, he definitely would.
Absolutely.
In fact, I might take it a step farther. Let's get the ADs the hell out of that business.
I agree. You know, it's kind of like what's going on with the college football deal, like with all the NIL and the transfer portal. Like they need to have a Nick Saban, or they need to have somebody in that position that's been in it that can help them weed their way through the grass and this stuff, because NCAA has botched it.
Yeah,
they're trying to get back a hold of it with what they did at UT, but it's not going to happen anymore. You've let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, somebody in basketball is going to have to step up, whether it's Izzo, one of the older retired coaches, and just fix this.
And I didn't even mention Coach K.
Coach K would
Seriously.
be, he would
for that matter,
Roy Williams.
Roy Williams.
Yeah.
I mean,
you got guys with a bountiful knowledge that could help. That could help the NCAA with this stuff. I mean, they could help with the NIL stuff too. I mean, just get all these coaches and just start asking them like what we should do. How do we go back on what we've done, and how do we reel this back in a little bit? That people would be so, apt to what they're going to say.
I will say it's really easy in football because of how legendary Nick Saban is to go, Nick Saban.
Absolutely.
He's the guy. In basketball, it's not as easy as that because you kind of got a handful as opposed to one guy, where you can go, boom, it's him. In football, it's not even in a debate who it is.
Let me make an exception on the AD thing.
Because I was going to say there are some ADs.
If they've played college basketball,
yeah,
that's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when CM Newton was an AD, he would have been.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look, he'd coached for God only knows how many years, and then became an AD later in his life. And I had some fun with him. One time he said, "You realize I'm the only AD that'll speak to you."
There aren't many ADs out there like CM.
It was very close. Your guy Massaro would speak to me.
He would.
Yeah.
Also, in the NFL, I don't know if y'all saw this today, but the competition committee has proposed a revamped kickoff.
Oh, listen, we're going to talk about it at some point. Have you all seen what it is, what really has gone on here?
Well,
I haven't. No.
I haven't gotten a good
listen
enough
to
look
this
at it. But
okay, you want me to do it? Because I know a little bit.
yeah,
here.
I'm just looking at ESPN here.
So think about this. This is the most constructive drinking that has gone on at the Combine. All of the NFL special teams people got in a room somewhere, probably at night. They probably had a couple of little cocktails, and they put together, because look, it's their jobs on the line. If the NFL had it their way in their CYA mode, we'll have no kickoffs.
Yeah,
Really?
exactly.
Why don't we just play in skirts? And so what these special teams coaches have put together is sort of a deal. I'm going to try and explain this right. The kicker who will kick off from the 35-yard line still will. But the other people that are covering the kick are on the other team's 40-yard line. And until the ball is touched, they can't move.
Oh, that's weird.
It's weird, but I mean, they've done some real study.
I don't know that this gets approved.
Well, I'm not. Look, there was a lot to it. I watched it today on McAfee, and all I can say is this: that they had the special teams coach of the Saints on, and he said that that based on last year, that we would have 80 to 85% of kickoffs returned.
And,
Really?
and minimize the collisions.
Yeah. Give me one more story.
Yeah, because we're running out here. One more story. In 2025, the SEC is going to go with an 8-game schedule again. So no 9-game schedule in 2025. Tennessee's opponents, the opponents have been released as well. Arkansas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Vandy. And then their road opponents, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. For Vandy, they've got Auburn at home, Kentucky at home, LSU at home, Missouri at home. They got to go to Alabama, to Tennessee, to Texas, and then at South Carolina.
Okay.
Some of these are interesting, though, and maybe we take a look at these somewhere down the road. But 8 games, 2025.
Where does anybody go play the Raiders in this schedule? Good Lord.
And then
Holy
also,
cow.
Preds walloped
Yes.
the Sharks last night, 8-2. It was kind of a slower start for the Preds, but
proud of them.
They put up 8 goals. McCarron had a couple of goals. Yossi and Forsberg scored, and they will return to the ice to Florida to play the Panthers, best team in the league, on Thursday night.
This is not just some little 5-game winning streak on the road. This is now of like biblical hockey proportions. In the last 15 games, they could have gotten a possible 30 points. They have gotten 28 of them. Darn right, I'm excited.
That's crazy.
Yes, it's insane.
It's insane.
I wonder how many people are really noticing. After the break, we're going to be joined. He's got a big title now. You know, when I first knew Greg, he, I think, was a sports information director. But, Greg, here it is on the phone. I know you don't even believe I can use a phone. Greg Sage, Associate AD for Broadcasting and Media Relations. I know him as a friend and a basketball junkie. He will share some thoughts when we come back.
It was the most horrible experience that any mother could ever go through. I knew that I needed to get help. My friend, she immediately said, "You need to call Bart Durham." And you guys were there within an hour. You guys are like family for us.
Yeah, sure is nice to connect with the people that you're doing your best to help.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
I'm Watson Brown.
I'm Kelly Holcomb.
I'm Billy Derrick.
We're the George Plaster Show. We've been Nashville's best sports talk for the last 30 years. And you know what? We still are.
Catch us live weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Time in Nashville on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, the podcast version is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Looking for more than just awards and trophies? Southern Trophy House is your one-stop solution. For over 60 years, their team has created lasting impressions with a personalized touch. From embroidery to screen-printed apparel to corporate awards, signs, and name badges, they have everything you need to keep your brand shining bright. With their knowledgeable customer service team, you can relax as they create, produce, pack, and ship merchandise and awards on time and on budget. That includes etched crystal awards, custom-cut acrylic, name badges, embroidered Richardson ball caps, banners, screen-printed T-shirts, laser-engraved Yeti cups, and knives. Recognize your hard-working team from Southern Trophy House, where they do their best to help you recognize your best. Located at 2705 Nolensville Pike in Nashville, give them a holler, 615-256-7295. Visit southerntrophy.com. Southern Trophy House, for all your personalization and recognition needs. So I had a little fun with Greg Sage's title earlier, but the truth of it is he has been terrific in his profession, 19 years at Belmont, and he joins us as a card-carrying member, a season ticket holder of the CBS Sports Network. Greg, how you doing?
It's good to be with you, George, Billy, Kelly. Good to see you. Great time of year.
Yes, sir.
As you can see behind my back, I've got my Ben Shepherd Indiana Pacers jersey. There you go. As Billy expands, I've got Dylan and Ian on the wall too, George. So
very nice.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I got to laugh. I think I remember. Did you send us sort of the hey, I'm willing to do this? Was it Sunday that you sent it?
Yeah, I sent you a text. You know, you've been kind in the past, your different iterations of your show to have me on and break it down, George. You know, I'm passionate about the bracket and candidly, you know, so close for both the Belmont men and Belmont women this year. They've had great years under Coach Alexander and Coach Brooks, the only program in the country to win 20 games 9 straight years in men's and women's basketball. But yeah, just, you know, again, a lot to discuss. And you know, I do think we have a prohibitive favorite and a team who has a chance to win back-to-back in UConn, George.
Well, let's get to that here in a second. Kelly, you'll laugh. When I got the message, hey, you know, if y'all want me to come on, I just did this. I looked at I was dead. Sonny,
well, because you knew you had Taylor coming on anyway. I'm just the appetizer for Taylor.
No, I think, listen, we're going to let Taylor know that, you know, Greg Sage is not chopped liver, so you better bring it. So talk to me about UConn. Do you think there is a team out there that privately UConn would just as soon not play?
Well, I'll start this way, George. I think they're the most complete team in the tournament. When you talk about offense, defense, exceptional guard play, coaching, rim protection. Last year they did it as a 4 seed. We seem to forget now that they were a 4 seed last year and ran the table, winning every game by double digits. This go around, I do think that they're prohibitive favorite. A lot of times you hear talk, would you take UConn or would you take the field? And certainly in March Madness, you'd always take the field. But this is one of those unique teams where you'd at least have a measure of thought. In terms of a team that could give UConn a challenge, George, well, the committee didn't exactly do them any favors. Look at their path just
No
to the
kidding.
Final Four. I mean, potentially they could play a Final Four team last year in Florida Atlantic, the SEC tournament champion in Auburn, and then potentially the Big 12 champion Iowa State just to make the Final Four. So it'll be a rigorous path. I do think that they have the hardest path of the number 1 seeds. But with Coach Hurley's coaching, their confidence, I think they're the prohibitive favorite, like I said moments ago. The one team that there are a few teams that I do think that give them the challenge, but you've got to value possession and you've got to be really, really physical. And a team like Houston can do that.
I want to get you to talk a little bit about Drake. I paid a lot of attention to the Missouri Valley this year, and I think it's a badly underrated conference that is not getting nearly the national stuff it ought to be getting. That kid right there, Tucker DeVries, can really play, and I'm convinced Drake's going to beat a Washington State that I think was better in January than they were in February. Give me some thoughts on that matchup.
Well, I'll start this way, George. As a card-carrying member of the Missouri Valley, I do feel as though the league should have gotten 2 teams in. I think that Indiana State was a very worthy team. Obviously, you guys have heard all of the talking points that Coach Josh Schertz has said. They've really only lost three games when they've had their starting 5. The number 1 offense in America throughout the year. Specific to Drake, George, Drake's an exceptionally balanced team. Offense, defense, the analytics really like them. Candidly, I think they had a stronger team last year. It's only my personal opinion. People forget Miami made the Final Four. They were down 8 with 5 minutes to go against Drake in the first round. And this year's Drake team, they lost a lot of great players. Roman Penn, Garrett Sturtz, DJ Wilkins, Sherrod Calhoun. And so I give Coach DeVries a tremendous amount of credit in terms of rebuilding the roster. And he had great returning players, certainly in his son, Tucker DeVries. And then we joke in the league, it seems like he's 45 years old, 25-year-old player, Darnell Brody. But specific to the matchup, George, I think it's a little bit of a tricky matchup. Candidly, I'll just push back a little bit with you. I think Washington State, one of the biggest teams in the bracket, and I think some of their positional size and length may challenge Drake a little bit. Certainly we're very hopeful that Drake not only wins that game, but advances in the bracket. But I do think on the surface, it's going to be a game that Drake might need to win a little bit lower scoring game. They like to get it into the 70s, and I think that might be a little bit of a challenge against Washington State's defense.
Okay, I'm going to go Mountain West with you, and then I'm going to turn you over to Kelly Holcomb and see where he takes it. So, most of it's later in the evening, 8 p.m., but more likely 9:30 or 10 p.m. CBS Sports Network, which is not ABC. But, I've been watching a quality out there that is really good. And I've been yapping to these guys about Nevada and San Diego State and that kid, Ricky Ledee at San Diego State. In New Mexico, I couldn't figure out why they fell apart in February, but that run they made last week, that's a heck of a conference.
It is, George. Obviously, they got 6 bids. Last year they got 4. We saw last night, it started with the quality from Colorado State. So much of the attention on Twitter and the conversation this morning was Virginia's performance or lack thereof. But I think Colorado State is a quality program under Nico Medved. But I like New Mexico a lot, George. They won the conference tournament championship. And as we heard from the committee chairman on Sunday, they may not have gotten in had they not beaten San Diego State to win the conference tournament championship, even though sitting here today, they're 22 in KenPom. And so I think a lot of value with New Mexico's 11 seed. This time of year, they possess all of the things you're looking for in an underdog. Great guard play, 3 great guards, positional size to match up with a variety of teams, and confidence. They're just really rolling right now, and a little bit of a favorable bracket. I think it is an 11, not a scary matchup against Clemson. Clemson's good, George, but they're scuffling a little bit, having lost 3 of 4. And if they were to advance, I think they would match up favorably against either Baylor or Colgate. So a lot of value there with New Mexico.
Okay, I lied. I'm going to ask one more. Have you seen Bryce Drew's Grand Canyon team?
I saw them in the non-conference. They actually defeated San Diego State. Didn't watch them as much in conference as I did in the non-conference, but I tracked their team, tracked their scores. Certainly, I know quite a bit about them. Like so many of these rosters, George, he's done a great job in the portal. When you look at the starting 5, he basically has a Kansas transfer, an Arizona State transfer, and 3 mid-major, All-Americans, old players as his starting 5. And then his top 2 off the bench or an Oregon transfer and a Louisville transfer. So when you're looking for these upsets, as you well know, George, you've been around the block, you want teams who can actually physically match up. And Grand Canyon can do that. I think the things with their matchup specific to St. Mary's, George, turnovers have hurt Grand Canyon at times. And in a low possession game, St. Mary's really slows it down. You have to value possession. And they just have to make some threes. At times, Grand Canyon has relied on their athleticism, size, getting to the free throw line. I think to beat at St. Mary's, they just have to be selective in making some threes. But it's going to be a lower scoring game than they would care for it to be, simply because St. Mary's dictates tempo.
Okay, let's bring Kelly up here. Kelly, in the future, instead of you just saying, George, you're old, I want you to use the phrase he used. Been around the block a few times.
No, I'd rather say you're old.
Thank you. Really
Greg,
appreciate
we said old over here when you're around the block over here off the boulevard, George. So I'm just giving you the pass today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Greg, I apologize that you know George as well as you know George. I apologize for that.
Likewise,
same to you. Kelly, there were a lot of trips to his office where I'd be like, do you know how to unjam this phone?
Oh, Lord. Are you the one that hired George at Belmont, Greg?
No.
I can take no credit. That would be our mutual friend, Scott Corley, Kelly.
And he takes no credit for it.
Hey, the minute you go to the phone or you go to the email, George, you still owe Jill Holmes a lot of flowers and emails and candies and all those things.
Oh,
you know
my God. Yeah, I would never dispute that at all.
Well, at least George has he's come up with an iPhone now. He used to have a flip phone. Like 2 years ago, he was still carrying around a flip phone. So he's advanced a little bit.
It's not true. It blew up at Belmont. Go on with your questioning.
Okay, Greg. So I'm kind of like a broken record here, but you talked about Indiana State, who's in the Missouri Valley, and Billy brought it up earlier, which I thought was a great point. I mean, I think Virginia last night got the Tony Bennett effect from being in, the play-in game. Like I get so irritated because when you're in the SEC, Auburn wins the SEC tournament, Tennessee wins the regular season deal, but Tennessee's ranked higher. And then you go to these mid-major schools and you go to the Missouri Valley or the Conference USA, and if you don't win the tournament game and you don't win the championship, you're not going. So last night, don't you think that Indiana State deserved to be in that play-in game, at least with having like 28 wins on the season?
I would echo your sentiments, Kelly. I mean, I'm not going to debate that, because, again, we're in the same conference, and a two-bid Missouri Valley selfishly benefits me and us. So that's kind of a full disclaimer. But specific to Indiana State, again, you're talking about a team that scored 86 points per game from start to finish, the number 1 offensive efficiency. Their starting 5 can play with anybody. I'm talking UConn, Houston, North Carolina, right down. And then I've heard several people, Doug Gottlieb included, Pat Forty, who have said this is a TV show. And so if you're trying to expand the base of college basketball, this isn't any indictment on Virginia. I like Coach Bennett, respect him a lot, know people at Virginia, but just a television product, you have a chance to put this superstar social media, Robbie Avila on TV for 2 hours as opposed to a team that's struggling to get out of the 40s. And so, again, I'm not judging the committee. They have an extremely difficult job, but I am always going to side with the strong mid-major programs. That's just who I am. And I think we'll see it this year because it's a really, really strong 12 line this year. Traditionally, we see these 12-5 upsets. And I don't think all four will happen, but I do think that there's a chance for multiple 12s to beat 5s.
So they're talking about, they've already done it in college football with the 12 playoff deal, and they're talking about expanding the NCAA tournament. What's your thoughts on that? You like it? You dislike it?
I think it's almost an inevitability. In my opinion on it, it really is irrelevant. I think you read between the lines with what Greg Sankey has said. Honestly, what Tom Izzo said at his press conference today, previewing their game against Mississippi State. I just think tournament expansion is an inevitability. It's just, what will it look like? I heard actually Dan Patrick this morning recommending an expansion to 80 and essentially doing first four feeders into the bracket. So instead of just getting 2 16s and 2 11s into the field, you would do it in every region. And that seems somewhat reasonable. But again, as the four of us with Billy already all know, you're probably talking the 13th place SEC team and the 12th place Big Ten team. You're not talking Indiana State or James Madison if they would not have won the Sun Belt. So it's interesting sports talk radio fodder, but I think inevitably tournament expansion is going to be catered more towards giving more bids to I don't even like the phrase power conferences. It's just the power two right now, SEC and Big Ten.
Yeah, that's correct. And I'm going to let's expand on that, because I presented this question to Billy and George yesterday. But with what's going on in football, we get it. Like the Greg Sankeys of the world, the Kevin Warrens of the world, they're wanting just the big conferences. And do you think that will funnel over into the NCAA tournament? I mean, because, I'm a middle guy. You're a Belmont guy. Do you think later on down the road, which I hope it doesn't happen, but they're going to try to leave the little guy out at some point, and it's just going to be all these big, teams like the Big Ten teams, the SEC teams, the Big 12 teams, and leave the St. Peters, leave the Belmonts, leave the Middle Tennessees out? I can see that happening at some point. I hope it doesn't, but I can see that happening.
I think my response would be it's more likely to see it cut out. And we've already seen it cut out in football. I think it's less likely short term for basketball. But that's the biggest fear. I mean, you can read between the lines with some of the remarks that Greg Sankey has said. I just think in his heart of hearts, he knows the beauty, the magic of the Cinderella. That's at the core of March Madness, either in the men's side or in the women's side, though fewer upsets happen in the women's side. So to answer your question, I think what we're seeing in football is the squeezing out more right now. I don't see it short term in March Madness for the basketball. I mean, we can remember even 10, 15 years ago, Boise State football was top 10 annually every year. We're not seeing that anymore.
No, that's absolutely correct. So do you have a dark horse in the field this year? We know the UConns, the North Carolinas, the Purdues, Tennessee. Is there a team that you've watched that you think can make a run? Maybe not like the St. Peter's did, a 15 seed, but somebody that's kind of a dark horse that can maybe get to the Elite Eight or the Final Four.
Well, I mentioned New Mexico a moment ago, Kelly, in part because they're playing with confidence and they have tremendous guard play and a favorable bracket. Anytime you're talking double-digit seeds, the disclaimer always has to be, sure, they can make a deep run, but they can also lose their opening game. There's a reason why the higher-seeded teams have the higher seeds. They're stronger. They probably have more on the resume to earn those seeds. like a lot of attention is going to be made leading into the Samford, Kansas game, Kelly. George, we've seen Samford for several years under Bucky McMillan. Such a unique style, such a hard style for Bill Self in Kansas to prepare for. Plus, you're dealing with the injuries to Kevin McCullough and Hunter Dickinson. So I think a lot of attention will be around that Samford. A, can they beat Kansas? And B, could they parlay that into something deeper? But again, I think if you're looking for a dark horse for multiple games, I do think New Mexico is a team that's playing really well right now.
I'm right there with him on New Mexico. I have watched them. I've probably seen 10 of their games, which begs the question, get a life. But it's the truth. So I want to ask this one last thing before we go, Greg. We were babbling before you came on about how, Izzo put it out there today that some coaches need to be a part of this. There needs to be a little more eye test and maybe a little less metrics. I happen to agree with him. Would Rick Byrd, who I think is one of the most fair human beings that I've ever been around, would he enjoy being on that committee?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, George. This is probably 8 or 10 years ago. It was before Coach Byrd retired. Both Mike Krzyzewski and Pat Forty endorsed Coach Byrd to kind of serve as this czar of college basketball role. Now, it never materialized, and we have the current iteration of the committee, and really Dan Gavitt kind of serves that role, in all honesty. George, that Coach Byrd is actually on the NIT selection committee. So he was asked to do that, and just because he's such a gracious man, he's elected to do that. I don't think he would say no, but it's interesting that Tom Izzo was speaking about the composition of the committee. His team got in. His team seemingly gets in every year. I would think those type of comments would come more from, obviously, Rick Pitino didn't get in, or Josh Schertz, or Jeff Capel in these instances. But it's never easy. Whether you can expand to 80, team number 81 is gonna cry. 68 team field, team 69 is gonna cry. But I will say this: I think if I'm reading between the lines of your remark, George, the committee could do far worse than anything to do with Coach Byrd. He would come to it from a fair, unbalanced, objective position, and he's universally respected.
Read that one. Look at that.
Rick Byrd needs to be the commissioner of golf to settle the PGA Live war.
I agree.
That's beautiful. Oh, whoever sent that, thank you. Greg, thank you. I knew this would be good stuff. I knew you'd have some great info, and I'm thrilled that I woke up out of my Sunday coma quick enough to at least acknowledge that we need to do this.
Well, tell Taylor I said hello. I'll probably text him before he comes on, George, and maybe pass the tissue to him because, yes, the Cavaliers did not have their finest 2 hours last night.
He knows he's going to get roasted. Greg, thank you as always.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Kelly. Hey, thanks, Billy.
You got it. Thank you.
Greg Sage, he has been at Belmont now for 19 years, and he'll be shocked to see me pull up by way of my phone so quickly that he is the Associate AD for Broadcasting and Media Relations. And he's really good at it. We're back with more in just a moment.
Hit After Hit has become the baseball store in Tennessee. They have over 1,000 different models of gloves and over 1,500 wood bats. They also have several Iron Mike pitching machines as well as a Hit Tracks machine. If they don't have it, you probably don't need it. We're proud to call Hit After Hit the official shirt provider of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night.
Forget the fact that Sir Speedy Music City is owned by my BGA classmate James Warren. Their work stands on its own merit. James and his staff do incredible work, as evidenced by the huge banners at the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. If you're looking for quality to help your marketing and business communications and you want it at a reasonable price, these are your folks. Call them at 615-832-9511 or go to print at sirspeedymusiccity.com. And be sure to tell them Plaz sent you.
Over the years, more men have started to seek help for hormone deficiencies and imbalances. And Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and wife Daphne, along with their experienced staff, give men the treatment required to improve their quality of life, improve your immune system, energy level, cognitive function, and more. There's no better time to achieve a healthy lifestyle. What are you waiting for? Give Cool Springs MD a call today for an appointment at 615-486-3458 or visit the website coolspringsmd.com.
For over 35 years, Wilson Bank & Trust has been committed to providing customized banking solutions to help individuals, families, and businesses in Tennessee achieve their goals. As your full-service community bank, we are proud to offer loans with competitive rates, local decision-making, and fast, friendly service from our experienced lenders. No matter where you are on your financial journey, Wilson Bank & Trust is ready to help you take the next step. Visit your nearest Wilson Bank & Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Convenience and value, two words that we expect when we do business. Our goal at JHA Company is to deliver just that, both to our school partners and to our customers. Whether you're purchasing photos, yearbooks, class jewelry, letter jackets, school spirit wear, or senior graduation products, we strive to make the experience easy, convenient, and cost-effective. Find out more at jhacompany.com or call 615-867-6345 for more information. JHA, one source, one company.
Okay, I'm going to use my phone again, Kelly, for to try to get the quote pretty much the way it came out. I've met Tom Izzo one time, had him on my show one time years ago through Tim Thompson, and I'm an Izzo fan. I'll just say that up front. Here's part of what he said today. I think it's hilarious. There definitely should be some coaches and players on that thing to bring some levity to as crazy as it's gotten. I never know what the net means, what KenPom means, what ESPN means, or the Daily News. There's so many things out there right now that do influence the committee. By the way, let me also throw this out here. Have you all seen the list of schools? I thought it was 3 or 4 until I saw, I happened to catch, I don't know, whatever NIT game was on. The list of teams that declined the invitation, you could go from here to that shopping mall back there.
That's crazy. I don't understand it. It's unbelievable to me, George. It's just, you're absolutely right. I don't get it.
So let me ask this. If the NIT, because the NIT cannot withstand another year or two of this.
Correct.
So what is the answer?
Ooh. I'm not sure I know the answer, George. I just, that was always a deal. Like, kids just like playing basketball. They want to keep playing basketball, but now it's gotten to like, we're crying over spilled milk. We didn't make the NCAA tournament, so we're not going to go to the NIT either. So I don't know. I say it quite a bit on the show here. It's kind of like society right now. Everybody is offended. Everybody's upset about something, and now they get their feelings hurt because they don't make the NCAA tournament, and they don't want to be thought of as an NIT school. So you're right. I mean, the NIT, if it keeps happening, the NIT is in trouble, and I'm not sure what the answer is, George. I don't know.
Let me know what y'all think of this.
Okay. Is this original, or did you read this?
I just thought about this, and I'm interested to see what y'all think.
So this is an original thought from you.
Yes.
Do we have like breaking news sounder?
So 68 team field, and maybe even go down from the 68 team field to suit everybody. But the NCAA tournament is from Power 5 schools only. But the NIT is stock full of mid-major schools, group of 5 schools. And so there's 2 separate tournaments, one for, and I know this takes out the Cinderella, but you would have 2 tournaments that are just great competition. You could promote both of them. You could have them both on TV. You maybe have the championship from the mid-major tournament earlier to the Power 5 tournament, have that one maybe a week later. It's kind of crazy, but I think it would create more competition in the NIT, because right now the NIT is a joke. But I do get the comment that, okay, that takes away the Cinderella, which is what the NCAA tournament is built around.
Here's what bothers me. I know what the pitfall of the NIT is. I've broadcast a team that came pretty darn close to the NCAA, and on the night of the opening round of the NIT, they couldn't have cared less. They were all thinking more about spring break, and I get it. Nobody is very excited until you win the first game. In spite of your indifference, you happen to win the first game. And now all of a sudden, it's getting a little more interesting, because it's not Happy Valley State, it's Iowa State.
Yeah.
And then listen, I remember Kelly, now I was a little 25-year-old snot at the time, and I was Vandy's color announcer, and we made a run to within 1 game of New York.
Yeah.
And we ran into, at 11 o'clock in the morning, a Southern Miss that just shot the lights out. And Southern Miss buried us. And I remember being bummed. I really wanted to go to New York. I wanted to say I've done a game at Madison Square Garden. I got that chance a year later as Memphis State's play-by-play announcer. But everybody starts getting more interested as it goes along. And shame on the schools and shame on the coaches who have allowed these players to basically whine and snivel and bitch, and we're not playing. Well, okay, maybe in the future, if we're going to save the NIT, maybe it's got to be contractual with all of this, NIL stuff that,
That's where I was going with that.
If you're going to represent our school and you're going to accept our $300,000, by God, play in whatever we get invited to.
Correct. That's kind of what I was going to say, George. I think you got to parlay it into the NIL. Like, I think Nick Saban was trying to do that. Like, if you are taking this money from us and you're a high draft pick and we go to a bowl, but it's not the 4 teams that are in the bowl, you're going to still play. And I think that's the way you got to do it. Like, if we're giving you money and we get invited, we don't make the NCAA tournament, we get invited to the NIT or another tournament, you're playing because we've given you money. That's just part of it. I think that's where you got to approach it.
I'll tell you one funny NIT story. Here comes storytelling. Years ago, it was a year where Kentucky sucked and they weren't going to the NCAA. And so we get to the 5 o'clock hour, and I said, when we come back, I have the official release of Kentucky's NIT visit. Those of you in the Commonwealth will want to hear it. Stay tuned. Well, when we got to it, I announced that Kentucky would open against Texas Pan American. And if they were fortunate enough to win that game, they would move on to Southern Illinois. And if that happened, they would get to play at Eastern Washington. And I got called every name in the book.
These folks get mad, man. They get mad about UK basketball. It's just like somebody said the other day, though. They don't. I think Tony said it. Tony Basilio. They don't care about the SEC tournament. They want the big enchilada, and it's just like John Calipari said the other day. We don't care about this. And that's where they're at this point. Like, that's where a lot of teams are. I don't know how you do it as a coach. Like, UT had already won the regular season championship. I don't know how you get a team up for that to go play, because they already know they're either going to be a one seed or a 2 seed. They already know that. So what is the motivating factor? Now they're in the NCAA tournament, so they got a motivating factor. But those tournaments, like, I don't even know what they mean anymore. They mean a lot to the lower teams, the Middles of the world, the Belmonts of the world, the Lipscombs of the world. That means a lot. But like, now you're seeing the SEC, like Auburn wins it, and they're a 4th seed. And Bruce Pearl's wearing that out. He's got them guys motivated. They're ready to stomp some people.
By the way, if anybody wonders, I have bought into Auburn might make one of these Final Four kind of runs.
Yep.
Hey, they're good, man.
Done it before.
They're good. Chaos, man.
And Kelly's right. They've got that motivation. They've got that chip on their shoulder as a 4 seed. They probably think they should be higher. I like Auburn a lot.
It was funny. I was in their press conference Saturday before I, started chilling. And Bruce looked back there. I was about 4 rows back, like, what are you doing here? I tell you what, he's done a heck of a job with this team. Okay, I know we got to go to the break. We're going to go stat of the day. Billy, if you don't mind not eating while we're on the air.
We can hear you.
Mute my mic.
Excuse me?
Forgot to mute my mic.
What kind of a penalty is that, Kelly?
That's a C note right there. Everything that he does from now on is a C note, man. It's $100 fine. I mean, let's just get it out there. And we're going to a nice steakhouse. We're going to Morton's. We're going to Ruth's Chris. We're going to wherever you would like to go, George. I mean, I know you got some.
If you fire me,
you got some nice places.
If you fire me, I've got a buyout.
Yeah, sure you do. Look at Taylor Barnette. I see him in the background. He's put together a nice backdrop. He's going to come on smiling and all happy. And then I'm going to say Virginia. And then he might just escape.
Sucks.
Yeah, let's do it together. Virginia
sucks.
We're back after this.
You were in a crash.
Yeah.
Your kids were in the car with you.
We're very lucky to even be telling this story to you. Nikki treated us like family, and she was very caring and loving, and I'm just so grateful for that. She was somebody I could trust, and being a veteran, that's so important to me. My kids are going to have a better life now because I don't have to worry about those expenses that we were out. Your family has really created a legacy of trust, and I would recommend you to anyone.
Venture Express has been helping people in this area for more than 40 years. They're headquartered in Murfreesboro with over 30 years of dedicated fleets involving production, manufacturing, and corrugated experiences. They're an asset-based company with over 700 tractors, 4,000 trailers, and 800 drivers. If you need their help, dial them up 615-793-9500 or log on to ventureexpress.com.
Yo, you want to see something cool? No? Well, I'm going to do it anyway.
Step into the scene! No, nobody can do it like me! Zoom house plate with the kick cuisine! I was the black top king! 360s in my green machine! I was a kid and I was breaking down doors! Listening to Tribe, now we on a world tour!
Star Physical Therapy was established in 1997 with one great mission: to serve. If you're hurting, don't wait to receive physical therapy. You don't need a referral to see their physical therapist, and early morning and evening appointments are available. Make the call to 615-673-1420 and get rid of that pain. Star Physical Therapy, the official health provider of Football Friday.
You know, starting to save for your future doesn't have to be difficult. Let Wilson Bank and Trust help tone up your financial goals this year. Our certificates of deposits or CDs can help your money work harder with our competitive rates, earning you more than ever before. WBT checking options allow you to earn rewards you can really use, like a high interest rate or cash back on check card purchases when you meet some e-banking qualifications. Visit your closest Wilson Bank and Trust office or online at wilsonbank.com to get started today. Member FDIC.
Top of the hour on a Wednesday, talking little hoops with Taylor Barnette coming up. But first, stat of the day, brought to you by John English Antique Sports and Cards out in Shelbyville. They're open during the week, Tuesday through Friday from noon to 5, and Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5. Give them a call, 931-492-4304. All right, see what we got today. We're going NCAA tournament themed once again, and here we go. Virginia and its high-powered offense played in the first 4 last night. Who played in the lowest-scoring March Madness game of the shot clock era?
Well, now, wait a minute. Nobody has said they had a high-powered offense.
That was the joke.
Okay.
That was a play on words.
Okay. Played in the first 4 last night. Who played in the lowest?
March Madness game of the shot clock era. How long has the shot clock been around? Do we know that, George? Long time, I'm supposing.
Yeah, here's one of the things, and I do believe this is going to happen to UConn. In the Georgetown run in the 80s, when Georgetown was the Goliath, they ran into SMU and John Koncak, later a center for the Atlanta Hawks, and won a game 37-36. I don't think the shot clock was in at that point, but let's see.
They introduced the 45-second shot clock in 1985.
Oh, then it might be Georgetown SMU.
I was going to say Princeton, but go ahead.
Missouri State and Wisconsin in 1999, 43-32.
Okay, check out my story.
When was that?
It's in the mid-'80s somewhere, but it was Georgetown. It may have been 84. That may have been the game that forced it. Wow.
It was 37-36, George?
37-36 is what I think the final score of that game ended up, and Georgetown was lucky as all get out to escape.
With the score 34 all and 51 seconds left, Patrick Ewing tipped in Gene Smith's missed free throw in that game. And I think you're right. That was in 1984.
Wow.
Southern Miss, or not Southern Miss, SMU. In Georgetown, yep.
John Koncak. Okay, I was close. Wow. No cigar. It's not the first time. Won't be the last.
That was pretty good, George, though. I got to give it to you, man. Good gracious. 1984.
We're going back a ways.
That must have been a really inciting game to watch. Good gracious.
Let's say hello to Taylor Barnette as we welcome all of you into the 3 o'clock hour. Our digs are at the Fordyce Center, and behind me, if you're wondering, that is sort of I know. That's sort of part of the Predator.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll move out of the way. Okay. How hard is that to put together?
It's very easy. It's all virtual. You just, save an image and you put it as your virtual background. So I'll have to teach you how to do that sometime.
So
I'm out on that.
Is that a 2-minute or less deal?
Oh, 30 seconds.
Really?
That.
Okay. So you know what we're starting with. UVA, the school you played at before you came to Belmont, for a coach who I think is, number one, a Hall of Fame coach, and number two, has won a national title there, has a family pedigree that's incredible in the game, in the name of basketball. Taylor, is it as simple when I look on the court and I don't see anything special about Virginia that a bunch of kids have said in the last 5 years, I'm just not playing that style?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that one, I echo what you say. I mean, Tony Bennett is a Hall of Fame coach and a Hall of Fame man. I mean, he's a great guy and he does things the right way, and he's built a heck of a program at Virginia. And I was fortunate enough to play a year for him. And I think there are some kids that are like, hey, I want to play in transition on offense, and I'm not going to go there. And they've done a really good job of recruiting kids that fit their program. And so I think that it's both and. Like, I mean, there's going to be kids that want to go there because it's a great opportunity and it's a great culture, and there's still a way to get really good shots from three on offense in the blocker mover that they run. But yeah, I mean, it's kids like to play in transition. At least most do, and they don't do that there, and so that can definitely be a turnoff to some.
What do you think he meant? At the ESPN built up this big story about how, he had announced afterwards that they're going to have to change their system, when in truth, it was the final sentence in this long game night story. And I'm like, unless there was more that they didn't quote, there wasn't much to it. So what do you think Tony Bennett is thinking when he says we may have to rethink our system?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and I think that some people don't enjoy watching the way that Virginia does, but it works. And I mean, Tony Bennett's dad, Dick Bennett, he invented the pack line defense. I mean, that's proven to work. And offensively, I mean, when they won back in 2019, they had the number 2 ranked offensive efficiency in the country. I think more than system, it boils down to players. I think every good team, it's not rocket science. Sure, you have to have a system in place, but every team that wins a national championship or wins any championship has to have good offenders and good defenders. And this year, they just didn't have good offenders. Like, they didn't really have anybody that could create their own shot. And that really hurt them. They weren't very good offensively because I don't think they had really good offensive players. If you go back to 2019 when they won the national championship, they had DeAndre Hunter, they had Kyle Guy, they had Ty Jerome, they had Diakite, they had all these guys and Kie Clark who could set guys up. So I think that they had really good offensive players. This year, they still had a great defense, but offensively, they just didn't have the skill that some other teams of his have had.
Okay, I'm going to throw it ugly here. If you've won a national title in the last 5 years, shouldn't there be a residual interest in your program? Hey, they've won it in the last 5 years, man. We're dying to go there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I hear that point, but let's think about what's changed in college athletics. It's who can pay me the most, probably in most cases, or in a lot of cases at the higher level. So I think it's a different ball game now. And that national championship was 5 years ago. So I don't think it's as relevant as it was in 2020 or 2021. And things have changed with the transfer portal and NIL. So I don't think that may have as much appeal as it did a few years ago.
So before you came on, I kind of went on a little soapbox about all these schools that have opted out of the NIT, because it's not 3 or 4. It's more like War and Peace that have said no. And Taylor, I get part of it because I've been involved as a broadcaster with schools that honestly in round 1 couldn't have cared less. But if they got to round 2, all of a sudden the excitement started to build a little bit. Share with me some thoughts on what's going on here.
Yeah, I think that, well, one, the portal opened up on Monday. So if you don't make it in the NCAA tournament, I think that you could say you don't want to play in the NIT because, we want to be only in March Madness, the NCAA tournament, and hide behind the fact that you're trying to get a head start on the portal for the following year. So that, I think, has changed some things. Number two, I mean, you want to set an expectation for your program. You know, the goal is to make it into the NCAA tournament. But you know, my personal opinion is, you know, any opportunity to coach and any opportunity to play is an awesome opportunity. And you know, the NIT is, yeah, it's not the NCAA tournament, but it's a chance to play. It's a chance to coach. And I think if you get invited to that, then that's a great opportunity. But I understand where different people have different reasons. And the portal opening up on Monday, I mean, it puts some people in a weird position. So there's decisions to be made.
So how do you think this is going down? Is this because this wouldn't be the first time that players have privately grumbled, "Oh my God, we got to play in the NIT." I can remember a year, where deep down a group of players were thrilled when it was over. They couldn't wait to get out of it. Sometimes the experience of the NIT is not all that wonderful, in particular if you're on the road the whole time. Is this the coaches bucking up and saying, you know what, I've made the decision, we're not going? Or is this players being given the opportunity to tell the coach, I ain't going?
You know, I think it's particular to each situation. I think there could be both, depending on the team, depending on the situation. You know, I don't really know. You know, they'll just come out and say, I'm not playing in it. And, you know, we may not know the real reason. You know, I get some, you know, if it's a first year head coach or second year or whatever, like he's trying to establish like an expectation. I get that. But at the same time, it's also a chance to go win games and win a championship. So, but I do think that it could be for different reasons. Players could be over it. Coaches could be like, no, that's not what we do here. Our expectation is this, you know. So I think there's a lot of different reasons.
Okay, you want to go to your backyard?
Let's do it.
I walked into Bridgestone Friday night, totally convinced Kentucky would win against A&M. Partly because I had never seen an A&M that just, other than when they ripped Tennessee in College Station, I never really saw an A&M that I said, man, they're really good. And then Friday night, they took their game to a level I didn't know they had. So is it more about how great A&M played, or more about the fact that they pushed Kentucky around big time?
Yeah, I mean, Buzz Williams' teams are always physical, and I think that I think he's a really good motivator. Those guys were ready to play, and I think A&M, they play as good as Wade Taylor plays, and he had a great game. I think that he makes them go. You know, he's the straw that stirs the drink. I mean, he really is a good player, and I think that when he plays well, they play well, and I think they're physical and they're tough. So I think they'll beat Nebraska in the first round. I do, but I think that Buzz Williams is a really good motivator and had those guys ready to play.
Boy, he did have them ready to play. No doubt about that. Because essentially, they won at Rupp Arena South.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, everybody knows that the SEC tournament is a sea of blue and on Broadway.
Ooh.
So I mean, I know a lot of people in Kentucky were disappointed. They had tickets for the whole weekend for sure.
Kelly, say hello to Taylor Barnette.
What's up, Taylor? How you doing, man?
Kelly, I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. Are you done, George? With so few
for now,
questions?
there could be more, but you go wherever you want to go.
I got you. Let me ask this. I want to know this. I've been thinking about this, and this goes to y'all's backyard. And George, you might be able to get in on this too. But if you're just put your head coaching cap on, Taylor, if you're going in and interviewing at Vanderbilt, I really want to know what these coaches are saying nowadays with NIL and transfer portal, and it's more like you're interviewing for a job, but you're actually asking questions too, like what have I got in, you know, resources with getting money. So if you're going in as a Vanderbilt wannabe head coach, what are you asking all the power ups? What are you asking the AD about this job and what your resources are?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's obviously something that's a huge topic of conversation, and to compete in the SEC, there has to be some sort of not just some sort of, but an NIL presence. So I think it's definitely a topic of conversation. What does that look like? Vanderbilt, particularly with academics, and transfers and how that whole process works. And I think there's a lot of questions around NIL. So I think that's a big topic of the conversation. It's one that has to be had because it's the reality that we're living in. But I think even beyond that, you got to know the place that you're getting into. I think that you got to know Nashville. I think that you got to go know the landscape of the job that you're getting into. I think Vanderbilt's a unique place and a really an awesome opportunity. So whoever gets that job, I think, has a great opportunity to win some games in the SEC and to get that program rolling again.
Do you think, just kind of elaborating on that, do you think that Vandy is still a coveted job now?
Yeah, I mean, it's an SEC job, and the SEC, I think, is the most powerful conference there is, especially in the fragile state that the NCAA is in. And I also think that people are hungry. George is one of them for Vanderbilt basketball to be really good. I think there's people waiting to buy season tickets and come watch a product and a team that's really good and having fun and gets people excited. So I do, yes, absolutely.
So out of the 8 teams that are going from the SEC, which team do you think? I mean, I've talked about Kentucky being, they can win it all or they can get booted out. Maybe I don't know about the first game, but maybe, I don't know. But like out of those teams, which team do you see making the longest or the furthest run in this tournament?
Man, that's a great question. I think Kentucky wins at least 2. And I think they play Marquette or Florida, depending on Kolik's status and how I think he has an oblique injury from Marquette. I think that's a real difference maker. I do believe the game that I hope happens that I would really be interested in would be Auburn and UConn in the Sweet 16. I think that would be a heck of a game. Auburn's rolling, UConn's rolling. Auburn's really deep. They play well together. I think if Auburn could win that game, that they could make it to the Final Four. And I'm not out on Tennessee. I know everybody likes to give, Coach Barnes a hard time and postseason, all that. Like I think Tennessee has all the pieces of the puzzle. I think they're unbelievably motivated losing their first game in Bridgestone Arena, and I think that they've got a really good chance of getting all the way to the Final Four.
If you're Matt Painter of Purdue, he's had some tough exits the last couple of years, and they're a number 1 seed, not the number 1 overall seed, but they're number 1 seed. They got the big man of the year and Zach Edey. They got some guys that can play, some really good guard play. How do you approach this team? Is it just keep doing what we're doing? We're going to get over this hump. Like the mentality of that team, like in the NCAA tournament, has got to be kind of fragile right now. How do you go about that as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you prepare like you do every game, and you do what you do, and you enforce and impose your will on the other team. And what they do is it succeeds. And they do have a special player in Zach Edey, and I think they have the guard play around him that can they really can do it this year. I believe that. So I'm interested to see how it goes, but I think they're going to play Purdue basketball because it's a really good brand of basketball, and they've got really good players. And so it'll just be about those guys stepping up at the right time.
Okay, so I asked Greg this, but we know the North Carolinas, the Purdue's, Houston, Tennessee's, all these really good schools. Is there a dark horse team that nobody's really heard of or thinks about that can make a huge run in this thing?
A team I really like and I think is really good, and they're led by a really good player is Drake and Tucker DeVries. I think they're going to beat Washington State. If they do that, I think they'll play Iowa State, who's rolling. That'll be a really tough game, but it's not impossible. I think they have tons of experience. They got a star player. They have a great system. They play well together. I could see Drake making a little bit of a run, but obviously, I mean, playing Iowa State in the second round potentially is a really tough game. And the other one maybe is I think Richard Pitino has New Mexico playing really well. I think they're going to upset Clemson in the first round, and I think they can maybe win a couple.
Well, that's George. He loves him some New Mexico Lobos, so he's been talking about that for a while. But this is my last question, George, and I asked Greg this too. You look at I think they were 28-6 is what Indiana State was, and unfortunately, they don't make the NCAA tournament, which I'm not a big fan of. And Billy said it, and I said it to Greg. It's kind of like the Tony Bennett effect. Like, he's won a national championship. I don't know if Virginia deserved to be there, but don't you think like a 28-6 team should have been in at least the play-in game at Indiana State?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard decision to make. It's that one spot, I just think it's tough. I think Virginia earned the right to be there too, so it's like, who do you pick? I mean, if you look at it, their strength of schedule and the quad one wins versus quad one losses. I mean, it's a hard decision to make. I think Indiana State had a great year and they did an awesome job, but unfortunately it's, they don't play as many good teams as Virginia does. And, Virginia, I think, wins on the road at Clemson. I mean, they had a hot stretch there. So it's just a tough decision to make. There's a lot of teams that are deserving, but only one gets it.
True.
Okay, Kelly.
Yes, sir.
You asked some great stuff.
Appreciate
now,
it, George.
I want to get in on one of the things that you asked.
Vanderbilt.
Okay. Yeah. So
let's do it.
Under I'm a candidate, not me, but whoever me is. I'm a candidate. And I want to find out some things because I've got some questions. The first place I'm going is to Kevin Stallings because if people haven't noticed, he went to the NCAA 7 times in 17 years. Now, there were people who didn't like him personally. I get it. But how's he look right now? He looks pretty darn good. So that's the first thing that I would be doing. The second thing I'd be trying to figure out is this, okay? I sat for 4 days on the first or second row at the SEC basketball tournament. Vanderbilt is not going to rise above all those schools by out-athleticing all of them. You're not going to out-athletic Mississippi State. Vanderbilt basketball was built over a long period of time on out-shooting people. Jerry Stackhouse, way too stupid to figure that out. Okay? That was never, if you look, it was never a big source of anything. And yet, if you look going back into the 70s, that's what their program was built on. Great outside shooting. CM saved his job by way of Will Perdue in a kick it in, kick it out with 4 great shooters. They weren't out athleticing a lot of people, but they were out shooting people. And this guy, who, by the way, whatever it is he's getting in a buyout, no coach will have gotten more and earned less than he will at whatever the check is he's getting. I want to know, if I'm the coming in there to interview, did anybody ever walk into him and say, hey, I've been around the block a few times. This is not our best recipe for trying to get this done. If I'm asking Candace Lee, did you ever walk in and tell him, this isn't the way you're going to make it work here? Okay, is that a fair thought? If I'm interviewing, because it's just as important for the coach to interview them as it is for them to interview him. And if I'm coming in, I want to know, was he that stubborn or did you never say it? This is a school based on shooting.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's I don't know. When you hire somebody, you hire them because you trust them to do the job. You don't want to do the job for them.
Yeah,
You
but
know, I
but at some point when you keep going 0-18 and 3-15 and getting an extension for having a pulse, at some point don't you have to change course?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think what you're talking about though is yeah, maybe Vanderbilt built their program on shooting. You know, back in the day when you were calling the radio, but that's the name of the game. Period. Now, I mean, that's what everybody's after. You know, is shooting. Like at Belmont, I think Rick Byrd was way before his time. He figured out we can win games by shooting a lot of threes and playing at a fast pace. You know, you look at Alabama, that's exactly what they do. And I think that that's the name of the game now, period. You know, I think about one of Kevin Stallings' teams, and one of my favorite players when I was younger was John Jenkins, a guy that could really, really shoot.
He could really shoot.
You know, so I think that obviously that's something that you have to have. You have to have the ability to make shots. And I think that, you know, Vanderbilt was a slower paced team. And it's hard to make like 3-pointers coming off, you know, pin downs and screens, and you're a little more off balance than it is maybe getting step in threes in transition. So I think that obviously I think it's the name of the game these days. Steph Curry has changed basketball in a lot of ways, in the way that the Splash Brothers play and championships that they've won. You know, 3-point shooting is everything.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of questions. If I'm the coach that may be thinking about this, here's another one I'm asking. Okay. This coach will have a memory of Memorial Gym being one of the really tough places to play. And all of a sudden, it's a joke. It doesn't exist. This whole Memorial, you know, one of the things they put out, we want to thank Jerry for all the great memories of Memorial Magic. Hello, there was one in 5 years. What are we talking about? There was one. They
Well, I
beat
think, I
Tennessee.
mean,
There
you
weren't any
still have
great moments.
you
It
still have
was
to a
a
level of
commitment
respect.
to empty seats is all it was.
George is speaking from a graduate of Vanderbilt perspective. He's fired up, isn't he?
I am fired up. I'm pissed off. I've been pissed off for some time about the condition of the program, but he asked a good question. So the coach needs to be asking the AD or the committee or whoever, is Memorial Gym regainable? Or is it permanently gone? Because
What's
if the
regainable
answer,
if you win?
well, is it?
Yeah.
I think so. Absolutely.
I mean, I think it is too, but it's a different city. It's Preds, it's Titans, because one of the things that needs to come up is that the AD has to tell the candidate, by the way, we need you to be a salesman. We need you to sell this program in this community. Now, she never appeared to get around to doing that with Jerry, because Jerry might as well have been in some golf witness protection program. Nobody ever saw the guy for 5 years while he was here. Yeah, I know I'm going off a little half-cocked here, but you've asked a great question. What things need to be asked in an interview process? And all I'm doing is turning it around saying, what does the coach need to be asking? And the coach needs to ask, is Memorial Gym regainable? That coach may have seen that Tennessee embarrassment and said, good Lord, it's not even a home court. You know,
I think the simple fact of doing something new other than what they've been doing the last 5 years, the simple fact of making a change is a good start for, I think, a lot
absolutely.
of the fan base.
Now,
and so
what I think Taylor's trying to tell me is that you can't win 4 out, 1 in with Kentucky's leftovers in that state, which Vandy used to mop up on Kentucky leftovers up there who were great shooters. Are you saying that doesn't exist?
I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is this, is that you have to have shooting, period, in my opinion. Every team has a personnel, and it's the job of the coach to either one, recruit to the personnel of the system that they want to run, or they make a system out of the personnel that they have. And that's the job of the coach. You have to make adjustments. So it really is about who you have on the team and putting them in a position to succeed and to play together. So it really is a lot more personnel driven than it is system driven, because you have to have good players. And so if you want to have a 3-point shooting team, you have to have good 3-point shooters. And everybody wants that these days. Everybody wants to play at a fast pace and shoot threes, because that's what every kid wants to do. So it's a competitive market. So no, there's a lot of ways you can do it. Just like we talked about on the show earlier, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat with Tony Bennett. They won a national championship in 2019, and some people just don't like watching it because they think it's boring. Well, I don't think he really cares about that. So I think you have to either recruit to what you want to play, or you have to adjust to what you have.
Do you agree with me, though, they're not going to out-athletic what I saw last weekend here?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit more unique in terms of recruiting. But I mean, Vanderbilt had some great athletes on their team this year. It's just different. I mean, it's all about recruiting and who you want on your team. Like, do you want to hard hedge ball screens? Okay, well, you're going to need some more athletic 6'8", 6'9" bigs that can impact the ball. You can't, if you have a guy like Hunter Dickinson, you can't teach Hunter Dickinson. It's not putting him in a good position to hard hedge. That's just not very smart. So it's coming up with a plan, coming up with your system, and you either recruit to that or you adjust based on what you get.
Okay, let me ask this. I contend the best athlete on that team never saw the light of day in the second half of the season, Jason Rivera-Torres. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kid's talented. I saw some stuff early on. Freshman year is a hard deal, and I don't pretend to know anything behind the scenes. Like freshman year is a roller coaster ride. There's a lot of things you have to learn. Maybe he wasn't playing defense the way that he was supposed to. Maybe he was turning the ball over too much. There's things that we weren't there at practice every single day. So I think there's a development period that seems, it's harder to have these days because of the transfer portal and all that. But I think that freshman year is just a roller coaster. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, they should have played him more. I wasn't at practice every day. You know what I mean?
I wasn't at practice at all. I don't care about practice. I mean, if practice,
you're Allen Iverson.
If practice was that important, they'd have the scoreboard on. You won 33 practice sessions and you lost 18. I mean, look, I went to enough of their games. I saw what Rivera-Torres is capable of. But somewhere he fell into Jerry's little doghouse. I think there's more talent there in certain places than I believed going in. And whoever does get in there, I guess I would hope that the AD has said to those 4 or 5 that have some talent, let me do my job. Please give me the opportunity to hire somebody, and then after you meet with that coach, if you want to leave, you're free to. I'm just asking you to be fair.
Yeah. I think that, that's definitely a smart thing to do. But in this climate today, I'd be surprised if somebody actually, says, okay, I'll do that. I mean, everybody's got to do what's best for them. I mean, that'd be a tough deal.
Look at Kelly over there laughing because he knows
I've just got you fired up, dude. I love every bit of it, and I love the
George.
His
face is red. His face is red.
I know. I love the things that Taylor's saying because Taylor is so calm and he's so to the point. And then George, I've told you this before. Like, we don't really know though what goes on in practice, man. Like, that's big for some coaches. I mean, that's big for every coach. And if you're not doing it in practice, how can he trust you in a game?
Well, okay, so hold on. So you walk
he's
into
a freshman,
the AD,
just like Taylor said. He's a freshman.
You walk into the AD. Yeah, we were 9-2, but damn, we won every practice. We were undefeated in practice.
Well, you win games in practice.
Yeah, well, apparently not enough.
Habits are built in practice.
Mm-hmm. Well, not on that team.
You have to have habits.
Yeah, not
translate
on that
into the game, and a guy that's been in the system for 2-3 years has better habits than a freshman does. It's just logic.
Are you sorry you've agreed to be on this show?
I know you've been sick, man. This little session right here might send you backwards instead of forward. We might need to get you on another antibiotic.
That's getting those endorphins going, man. He's ready now.
It's broken up. It's broken up the mucus.
Absolutely.
Well, see, in all honesty, I think Kelly asked a great question, and I don't even remember exactly how he asked it. But I remember thinking, wait a minute, it's the other way around. The coach needs to be interviewing the school. The coach needs to do his part and talk to a Kevin Stallings ahead of time and say, hey, how did you get there 7 times in 17 years?
But again, it's a different era.
Sure it is. But that doesn't mean
I agree.
That doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah.
And that don't mean you can't give up. You can't give up either. I mean, just because it's a different era, we got NIL and transfer, you can't give up. I mean, you're still in the SEC. I mean, you're still playing in a big city. You're playing in the biggest conference in the country. You got to pick it up.
Something that Stallings did was recruit internationally a lot. And Vanderbilt just kind of stopped doing it. I mean, they would occasionally, but
David Shevashevsky.
But
all right, George, I got to roll. Appreciate you.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Hey, you should have said that a while ago.
Well, you were in the middle of your rant, man. So
do you think
I didn't want to interrupt that.
Do you think they'll fire you?
No.
All right.
See you, Taylor. Thank you. Okay, so you
and George. And George, let me ask you this. Let me tell you. No, let me tell you this.
Okay.
What I was saying in the question was, I want the coach. Like, I want to know what Taylor was going to say as a coach. I want you to interview the AD instead of the AD interviewing you. So you're kind of on my same wavelength is what I'm saying. That's what I think that's the way all these interviews have to go. Now, you know, when you're interviewing, it's always been this way. Like, you want to know how much you're going to get paid and what the job can but you have to understand the resources that I've got now. If you're a coach, you have to understand what's our collective with the NIL deal. What are we thinking with all that stuff? How can I mean, because Vanderbilt's pretty strenuous on academics. So are we going to be strenuous with that? Are we going to lax a little bit with that? Or what are we going to – there's things that you have to ask as a coach, especially in today's world.
Exception admissions.
Yes.
You know, here's another one that a coach needs to be asking. And by the way, Billy, when you find out who these coaches are, tell them I'll be glad to prep them.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Here's a question that needs to be asked. Can your former players help us in NIL? Okay, and the truth of it is she doesn't know the answer. And I don't mean that ugly toward Candace Lee, but the biggest load of BS that's been put out there in this whole Jerry Stackhouse thing is poor Jerry wasn't privy to NIL money. Oh, please, give me a break. Tyron Lawrence was well into 6 figures in NIL money. Number 2, Jerry had no relationship with 95% of former players. You know why? Because he made no effort to.
All right.
But there's been this BS narrative about how, oh, poor Jerry, he wasn't privy.
You know, and that's the one good thing that I love from Kerry Keating yesterday when we were talking to him, or the other day when we were talking to him, when Billy and I talked to him. He was talking about the alumni, and that was the biggest thing that he brought up. That's one thing I loved. You've got to have former players be heavily involved in your program. And that's the problem that I had with my alma mater up here with the last coach. Didn't care. They didn't care. Like, they didn't. You have to have people that want to come around. Like, it should be not. I hadn't been over there in 10 years to watch a game. And that's ridiculous because I live right down the street. But I got sick of seeing 5 and 7 and 6 and 6 every year, George, and no one reached out to anybody. And I'm not saying they have to, that's their job, but like, I love what Kerry Keating was talking about. That was the first thing he did when he went to Santa Clara. I want to bring guys. They can come to practice anytime they want. He even made a deal in the locker room for those guys. There's just something about having your former players be involved in the program because they feel like they want to be wanted. And for the life of me, up here hasn't been like that for years.
It's really interesting because back when CM was there, he created what was called the Commodore Rebounders. And the Commodore Rebounders, if you were a former player, you're a Commodore Rebounder. One of the coolest honors, my buddy Bob Horner, the longtime engineer, is the last person that was inducted as a Commodore Rebounder. And, that was a really cool moment for a guy that spent 33 years doing their games, engineering. Look, it's been dormant for way too long. Jerry Stackhouse wouldn't have known it if it hit him in the butt. But the fact of it is the next coach had better figure it out early. And here's the thing I don't know, okay? These all seem like real easy things, okay? Coming from me, they can't be all that complicated. So why wasn't he being forced to do these things?
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair question.
I know, but I'm like Taylor. I'm like Taylor with that, George. Like they hire you to do a job and they expect you to do the job and they don't want to get in your way. But if you're a coach and you want to be really involved, you want to get out in the community, I would do exactly what you're talking about. I would go talk to Kevin Stallings. I would ask him, hey, tell me the landscape. Give me the landscape of Nashville, of Vanderbilt basketball. Like, what do I need to do? You have to use those resources. And I don't know. Sometimes egos get into it and you just don't want to do that because you're the coach now. But I think that's just a resource that you have to go after. You've got to see he was successful here. Figure out what he did and then try to build on that.
You want to go stat of the plaster bet of the day now?
Sure. Bart Durham Injury Law brings us Plaster's Bet of the Day, brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. 615-242-9000 or log on to bartdurham.com.
Longest segment, by the way, in the history of segments.
Whew. It flew by.
Did
here
it?
we go. Felt like it kind of flew by a little bit.
Wow. Okay. Well, Taylor's part was good. Mine.
Kelly just lit you on fire.
No, he knew it. He knew he had tossed a little hand grenade over there.
Hey, Billy, I saw when he was over there writing stuff down when I finished asking the question, I was like, he's got something for me.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
where are
the
we?
Sixers won on Monday. Colorado State won last night, but Providence.
No, Providence.
Man.
May they rest in peace. For a team that has some of the best fan support, Providence, whatever the name of their arena is, that's Memorial Gym when I was growing up. And they got a bunch of rock throwers. They can't throw it in the ocean. You talk about a school that needs some shooters.
George, didn't Rick Pitino, he coached there, did he not?
He took Providence to the Final Four in 1987.
Providence.
And you know who his big player was.
It was a lefty. What's his name? Gosh, I can't remember his name. I could see him. He had the flat top. Tell me.
Chris Mullins. No, not Chris Mullins.
Chris Mullins. That's it. Oh, Billy Donovan.
Billy
That's
Donovan.
It.
Wow.
It was Billy Donovan.
Was at St. John's.
Billy
That's right.
Donovan.
He was at St. John's. Billy Donovan. That's
Chris
right.
Mullen was at St. John's with Walter Barry.
Barry.
That's right. That's right. I was totally wrong. Billy Donovan. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And that you take a look at Pitino back then. Youthful,
innocent.
Well,
is he not George? Is he not youthful looking anymore?
No. He's not aged well. The age machine is not walking through that door.
Larry Bird is not walking through that door.
We're almost done. Here are tonight's winners. Take them for what they're worth. Boise State. Anybody seen them?
They're going to win.
I've seen them. They're pretty good. Rice's son, Rice, is it Leon Rice, is the coach. His son is a very good point guard. They've also got a big old power forward who's pretty darn good. Now, don't get me wrong, Colorado came on late. Colorado's pretty good. I don't think they're as good as Boise. I'm going Boise.
Right.
And then check this one out.
Oh, okay.
Kelly, a lot of pressure all of a sudden on Indiana State.
Yeah.
If Indiana State poops the bed, their kids may be out on spring break tomorrow, but left behind will be the stench of the poop, because the nation has sort of, they should have gotten in instead of Virginia. They need to rip SMU a new one.
Yeah, it is a lot of pressure.
Problem is, I think SMU's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's his name has done a good job. He came from Tennessee. I'm forgetting his name. He brought over B.J. Edwards over there. Man, I can't think of his name, but he's a good coach.
I can't either. So by the time we come back on the air tomorrow, number one, I will have calmed down. And secondly, the NCAA tournament will have begun. We will have updates tomorrow, scoreboard updates, 2 o'clock, probably about 3 o'clock, and then at the end, we'll have at least 3 March Madness scoreboard updates. And if you hear us yell, it's because we got a TV over there and we can see some things.
Okay.
Comprehensive coverage.
What does that mean?
Who knows?
He don't know.
No, I know he doesn't. Kelly, behave. I know you did that on purpose.
No, I didn't. But when I saw you writing stuff down, I was like, yeah, he's getting red-faced.
See all of you tomorrow.